and welcome back. My name is Karen, and you're on the journey with Kare. I just want to open this video by saying that I'm just so grateful to those of you that watched my first video, and in particular to those of you that took the time to comment. It was very inspiring and heartwarming, and I was just so glad to connect with you. So, thank you for choosing to be on this journey with me. So, today's topic is actually about moving along and making these big changes in our lives, starting over. So, as you know from my first video, I'm starting over and I'm 66 years old. So, I'm sure many of you can relate to this and the whole idea of starting over. There are different kinds of starting over, and I would put them in a few different categories. So some are deliberate, where you make the choice to start over, and others are things that happen to you and experience something from, say, the outside. And they're very different. And in within each of those, there can be really small starting overs and larger ones, and some can be absolutely life altering. So I don't know about you, but I remember when I was a child and I would get out of bed and I was just having a terrible day. And my mom would say to me, "You've gotten out on the wrong side of the bed." So sometimes I would literally crawl back into my bed, and if my bed wasn't up against the wall, depending on where I was living at the time, I would actually get in my bed and then get out the other side. And what would happen would be just a sort of a shift in my energy and in my perspective. I would be excited about starting over. So that's an example of a small starting over. So we can think of bigger ones where, say, you're going away to school um, or going to a new school. But in my case, let's say when I went to university, I actually moved from Montreal. I'm a Canadian. I moved from Montreal, thereabouts, to Halifax. So it was really far away. And in that time, of course, back in the old days, um, we long distance was very expensive, and people didn't make long distance phone calls. Of course, we had no cell phones, and it was we would write letters, and it would take sometimes 2 weeks to hear back from my mom. I would write a letter, it would take a while to get there, she'd write a letter back, so by the time I would hear back, it was 2 weeks. So it was a really big move and a really big starting over. I was changing cities, I was changing even the culture was very different there than Montreal. Montreal being, a more European type city and bilingual, and going to Halifax, which um, in Nova Scotia. Basically, it had its roots from the British Isles, and it had a very different feel to it. And of course, starting university, very different from high school or anything that came before. So, but those are examples of things where I knew in advance, for instance, going to university. And that's something else that we can talk about. So, just going to look down at my notes here. So, yeah, so we are talking about the difference between if we make a change, we start over deliberately by our choice versus having to start over by something that happens. So, for instance, if you have an illness, or you lose your job, or you're laid off, or say you get transferred to a new city, so moving is a big one, big stress as well. What about retirement? That's a huge change for people. That's a real starting over. It's like starting a whole new chapter in your life. So, with those things, it's a matter of how we're perceiving the stress or anxiety of that starting over. So, of course, we as humans, we tend to react to change with anxiety. But we all know that change is inevitable in our lives. And the smoother that we can make the transition, the less hard on ourselves we can be about it, and the less hard in terms of the thoughts that we're, carrying, and also in the way that our bodies are feeling. Because that feeling of anxiety in the body is horrible. And believe me, I know. So, part of the whole thing with starting over is the mindset. It's a big piece of it. And I know I've done a lot of work on this myself over the years. So in terms of mindset, it starts generally with a thought, and that thought can create reactions in our body. So if we have a negative thought, which we might call stress or anxiety, that can create all kinds of things. We can have heart palpitations, our stomach could churn, we could feel weak, we could feel nauseous. It's a very uncomfortable feeling in the body. So that's more on the negative side. And on the positive side, if we have a positive thought, we can feel sort of uplifted and it can make us feel excited as opposed to afraid. And, what's interesting to me is that in the body, those two sensations of fear and excitement are actually very close. And scientists have studied the brain and they've studied all of the various neurochemicals that get released. They're actually very, very similar. So if we learn and we take the time to realize this, we can actually change that feeling of fear into a feeling of excitement. And it has a lot to do with the way that we're perceiving what's happening. Sort of, we have a thought, and are we taking that same thought as something that's scary or as something that's exciting? And how can we learn to do that? So, for instance, let's say, um, let's say your husband or partner has been transferred and you're going to need to move to a new city. Now, at first, that could sound terrifying. You could be leaving behind, obviously the place that you live, that you're comfortable in, that you've made a home. You could be leaving behind your friends, all the activities that you do, and that could seem very scary. But you could take that same opportunity of moving and then you can turn that into something positive. You can look at it as like, wow, I get to stay friends with all these people. And especially now with technology, I can reach out to them, I can stay in touch, I can come back for visits. But in the meantime, I'm going on this brand new adventure and I'm going to be able to find a new place to live. We're going to be able to look around for the right neighborhood for us. And I'm going to be able to start some new activities. Maybe you're going to get a new job there, or maybe you're going to, be the stay at home parent, or maybe you're just going to look for new activities to do with new groups of people. And that can be a really exciting thing. So it comes down to mindset in the way that we're perceiving what's happening. So, one of the things that I've learned that I've developed in myself as a habit, which takes time, is number one is starting to realize that we have control over the thoughts that we hang on to. Now, of course, we're bombarded with thoughts. I don't even remember the number of thoughts, the many, many tens of thousands of thoughts we have in a day. But I see them like clouds passing through the sky. And as we know with the cloud, it doesn't stay that long. It moves slowly sometimes, sometimes faster. But so thoughts are coming and going all the time, but it's the ones that we choose to hang on to that are the important ones. Now, if let's say you've heard that you're going to be moving. Now, if you hang on to that as a negative thought of, oh my God, I'm leaving everything behind, and you just keep going around and around and around in our monkey mind, spinning with that negative thought, you're going to encounter all kinds of negative sensations in your body. You're not going to feel well. And then the chemicals that get released in your brain change slightly, and they just create that feeling of anxiety and stress in the body. But we have a choice. We don't have to hang on to that thought. It can come into our minds and we can just say, oh, there's a thought. And then, we can deliberately change our thought. We can choose to think of something different, something that's positive. It could be as simple as, you know, just looking around for something in the house that makes you feel good. It could be your animal, your pet, a child, a picture, looking out the window. It could be anything else. And put your focus there for a second. And before you know it, that previous thought has gone away. Now it may creep back in again. And then you have the option again to just let it go. Deliberately choose a different thought to focus. So, what I'm trying to say is the mindset is so important. Looking at positive versus negative. What feels good in the body? Our bodies are amazing. They are our sensors. The mind keeps going, it has thoughts, and it's a wonderful tool. But we, the person, the spirit, the soul in this body are the masters, and the brain is our servant. It works for us. It doesn't control us. So we have that opportunity to make those changes and change our perception. So sometimes when something shocking happens, let's say you've heard that someone's just been in a big accident or something like that, um, the initial reaction in our body can be very stressful. And our heart starts to race, our mouth might get dry, might feel queasy, all those symptoms that no doubt you're all very familiar with. So, my first suggestion when that happens is to just take a pause and come out of your brain where those thoughts are being created and move down into your heart and into your body. Now, I know some people watching this um, have have challenges with all the energy that's in our world right now. And it's very easy to feel anxious. And as I briefly mentioned in the previous video, some of that is deliberate because when we're in a state of anxiety, we're easier to control as people. So it's about bringing back our empowerment, empowering ourselves, sovereignty as a person. And in doing that, that means that we have to make those choices and we get to choose what how we experience things. So by coming back out of our brains, our mind, into the body, first of all, I would just pause, stop moving, take some nice deep breaths, which we've done a little bit at the end of the last video, and just like breathe in and hold it for a second or two and breathe out. And do that a few times. Feel yourself, feel your feet on the ground or your bum in the chair with the back of the chair. It's a good idea to sit down or hang on to something if you've received a shock, and just allow that initial wave of that sensation to pass and bring your focus back into the present moment and into your body. You can feel the sensations and you can notice them, and then you can quietly tune them down, just like a dial. Like turn it, lower it down. Having a glass of water is another great way to ground. Speaking of grounding, I just, if the weather is amenable, especially in the summer here, or even most of the year around here, it's not too bad. But get out, put your bare feet on the ground. Literally, we are electromagnetic beings, and the ground is the same, the earth. And by putting our feet on the ground, that enables a lot of that nervous energy to just drain out of us down into the earth. So, but you can do that by with water as well, either drinking water, putting if you can put your feet or your body in water, that's amazing. But even going and splashing water on your face, washing your hands, drinking water, those are great ways to ground, as is breathing. We take our breath for granted in this society. Obviously, we're all breathing or we wouldn't be alive. But how many people actually consciously use their breath to control the physical sensations in their body? So I will be doing a whole video on various techniques, breath work techniques, simple ones, nothing complicated, but just learning the power of the breath is so important. So we did a very simple, short 3 breath sequence at the end of the other video that I've put up, the introductory video. But I'm just going to show you a very quick demonstration of what's called the box breath. So if you picture a box, right, you've got a side, you've got a top, another side, and a bottom. So picture yourself in one corner, and the first side is an in breath, and then the top is a hold. The second side is a down, an exhale, and then another hold. And a box has all 4 sides the same size. So let's say we pick 4 seconds or 4 count, however you count it. So we would breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, pause for 4, and start over again. And after you've done that for even as short as a minute or two, it just makes a huge difference. You can feel your shoulders dropping. You can feel that sort of the energy moving out of your head and calming down, coming down into your heart. You can feel if you're standing up or even your feet flat on the ground, you can feel that energy sort of draining out your feet, that anxiety, nervous, kind of like staticky energy. So let's just try this. We'll just do it. We'll just do like 2. Normally I do things in threes, but let's just do 2 because it takes a little bit longer. So we'll do 2 box breaths and I'll just make the count. So we're going to count to 4 for each part. So begin with an inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Again, inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Now, of course, you can do it for longer, longer counts, more breaths, but now you know what the box breath is. It's a very simple technique. And down the road, I'm actually going to be preparing a PDF that you'll be able to get. Um, but that's coming. I've got so many projects on the go right now as this whole journey with care is new. The learning of the technology as well. So anyway, getting back to the breath. So we're coming back to talking about this perception and the way that we can take a pause to calm our bodies down. And then once we've done that and we've sort of recalibrated, we've come back into our bodies, we're more centered, hopefully grounded, calmer, then we can deliberately look at the situation with fresh eyes and pick out the positive things. Don't focus on the negative things. I mean, it's easy to find those. We're sort of trained in this lifetime or these lifetimes on this planet to focus on the negative. But we can deliberately choose the positive. So start looking at, okay, let's take that example of the move. Your husband or your partner's been transferred and you're going to have to change. Now you've got maybe a month, 2 months to prepare, so there's time. And of course, you're going to have your emotions are going to ride up and down. But generally, you want them to sort of go like this and up and down, but heading towards more positivity and more excitement, as opposed to just sort of tumbling down into that fear frequency, which is a very low vibrational frequency. So we want to work our way up. So we're going to choose to focus on positive things. So, you might start doing some research on the place that you're moving to and maybe look for activities. Let's say you play sports or you're in a book club or, you enjoy going out to eat and you want to look up restaurants or see what the entertainment is there. Start to think of the things that really interest you that you like, or maybe something you'd like to try that you haven't done yet, even better, and see what opportunities are there and start to make a list. Actually write things down. And then you can come back to that list every day or even several times throughout the day and read it. It's only got the positive things and add to it whenever you can. And start to notice the sensations that you have in your body and how, you're able to catch the that feeling of anxiety or stress much sooner, and you're able to switch it. You pause, as we talked about, ground, center, and then deliberately choose a positive thought and feel those feelings in your body, that more positive, that switch between fear and anxiety to excitement and curiosity. It's a very powerful tool for many things. Another way that we can calm the body, as opposed to just, pausing, as we talked about, feeling those more positive thoughts, is actually to focus on gratitude. I will be doing a whole video on that, but just as a little teaser, I've really gotten to the habit of doing that. You can do it, many ways. A lot of people recommend a gratitude journal, and I did that for years at one point in my life, where I would write down a minimum of three things, usually in the evening before bed. It's a really good time to sort of set the brain into that vibration of gratitude. So, and even when things are really, really terrible, you've just had the worst day, you got in a car accident and someone broke into your house, and I don't know, whatever, some terrible sequence of things, there's always something to feel grateful for. Sometimes it's as simple as I I have a bed, a dry bed that I can sleep in. Or I have this technology. You're obviously watching me on a device, and you've obviously got enough money to pay for your internet. So be grateful for that. Be grateful for the clean water you've got to drink. And of course, it could be many, many other things. But I'm saying even simple things. And there's science backing this. There's a place called the Heart Math Institute, and they've done all kinds of studies all over the world with very, very specialized scientists proving that being grateful is absolutely extremely powerful. It's powerful for manifesting as well and for staying calm. And goodness knows, in this environment, this current craziness that we're in, this is being recorded in July of 2026. um, there's so much anxiety and things up in the air. And, I know for myself, I made a choice a long time ago, haven't had a TV in probably decades, but I really wanted to become more conscious of the media that I was consuming, whether it was radio. I used to listen to a radio station that was really good. At the time, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversations, I enjoyed the music, and but over time, what I started doing was when the news would come on, I would just switch the radio off and then put it back on after the news, because we all know that the news is just full of negative, scary things. They rarely, these days especially, ever talk about anything positive. Back in the day, I remember on like the TV news when I was younger, they would have some sort of very inspiring little story about something local, and that was always nice. But these days, it's completely different. So I'm very deliberate about that. I'm deliberate about the YouTube videos I watch. I want it to be something that piques my curiosity, something that I'm learning about, or something that inspires me. And I tune into my body all the time. And if I start to feel myself, my heart racing, feeling anxious as opposed to excited, I'm disciplined that way, and I'll just say, no, this isn't for me. So often, if I find a new series, the description may sound good. I start watching it. I'm 5 minutes into it, and rather than, oh, I'm going to just keep watching it to the end, if I don't feel, great in my body, if it's not making me feel the kind of feelings I want to have, I just shut it off. There's so many choices these days. So, and I know a lot of people are in this habit of scrolling, and we all know that social media has been designed to be addictive. So, you know, you need to be even more aware and be conscious of what you consume. And I'm talking media now, but it could also be in the way of food. If we consume too much sugar, for instance, that can make us hyperactive and actually anxious. And most of us don't drink enough water, right? Even I don't. I've got my glass of water here and it's half drunk. But you know, there's just more ways than we know that we can choose to be deliberate in creating the life that we want. So this whole video is about, starting over. So these huge changes. And, I just want to share with you that there are many ways that we can soften the change if it's something that is perceived at first as a very negative thing. And of course, if it's something that we've chosen to do, it can still be stressful. Changing, let's say we've decided to quit one job and move to a better job. a job that suits us more or is closer to home or maybe pays more money. But there's always that little anxiety around, what's it going to be like and getting to meet new people and having new challenges. But it's a question of learning to tune in to what makes us feel good and focusing on that. Now, this is something that I learned a long time ago from Abraham Hicks. You can look that up if you want more information on that. But this person, Esther Hicks, um, provides this information, shall we say, that comes from a higher source. So it's full of wisdom. And one of the things she shares and she talks about is if you want to manifest something, you really want to have it in like fine detail, like 4D. What do they call it? 4D? Um, so you really want to focus in on it and you want to get the most minute details about it. Let's say you want a new car, for example. You know, you decide on the color and what does it smell like and what does it feel like to be in the driver's seat of that car and where are you going to go with it? All those kinds of things. You really focus on the details. Whereas if it's something that is, again, a thought passing through and you're perceiving it as negative, you kind of want it to be like out of focus and very sort of cloudy or foggy and not a lot of detail because you don't want to put your attention on that. So, and again, I'm going to do a video on manifesting, so I won't go into much more detail now, but look for that coming up on the channel. The sun is starting to come in on my face. I can feel it. So I wanted to talk about starting over later in life. And, you know, I think there are some advantages to it being older, and there are some disadvantages. So, when you're younger, I think we're sort of more adaptable. There's a lot of changes that we experience, and we get used to it. And then as we get older, of course, we become a little more rigid and in our likes and our dislikes, maybe more refined, but also, we're just less likely to take risks and chances as we age. And some people in particular get very, very fixed in their ways. So that can be a challenge. But of course, with age comes wisdom and experience. And so as we age, we've got more years of experience behind us. So especially if we've been working on ourselves, we have more tools at our disposal and we have more control over things. So, you know, for me, this last big change was considerably more difficult because I was older and all of those things had happened. I had become more sort of entrenched and I'd been in a situation before I moved here. I was in a relationship for 10 years and we'd built this beautiful business. And, it was a wonderful adventure. And when all that came to an end, I was 65 at the time and it really was a jolt because it wasn't just that I moved to a different house and but I lost my partner. I mean, we decided to go our separate ways, but I lost that relationship and I lost the business that we were working on together and all the lifestyle that that business brought. And all of a sudden I found myself in another place, not too far away actually, but a new house, everything was different. I had renovations and things to do and tons of gardening. The house was very overgrown and I had a lot to do. So it kind of kept me busy. But then once I'd sort of gotten everything done, I was like faced with this sense of being, I was describing it to people as being sort of in the valley between two mountains. I'd finished this one and I didn't yet know where I was going. So I was in this uncomfortable place. So again, I could see that, I could choose to see that as a very negative thing, all the loss that I'd experienced. And certainly there was a grieving process, and that's something that, we should allow ourselves to do. But, instead of being so hard on myself and feeling that, you know, my life is over or something disastrous like that, I I took the time to focus. I did a lot more meditation and things like that. I really started to curate and create the life that I wanted here. I needed to make new friends here. You know, my social circle had focused around my partner and our business, and I hadn't made a lot of new friends in this area. So I started to do that bit by bit. Again, staying in touch with myself and my needs, and if I needed to just have a day to myself because things felt too overwhelming, they were going too fast, then I took that time. And over time, I started to get the sensation, it started to become clearer that what I was lacking was a purpose. And, I could find things to keep myself busy all day. That wasn't a problem. But I felt like that I was missing something in my heart. And I know that life is so much more than just staying busy all the time and having activities. So I really started to tune into that and gave myself permission to take the time to tune in inside. And although there were sometimes some very uncomfortable feelings of anxiety and not knowing and feeling disconnected, I would allow those to pass, sort of like those clouds. And I would tune in. What is it exactly? What's going on, Karen? What is inside? What's There's something that needs to be expressed. It's like a part of me. And that's another whole thing. We can talk about parts in another video. But gradually, over time, what emerged was this sense of lacking purpose. And so, over time, and it did take some time, I started percolating different ideas and I would take notes, I would journal about it. And it became clearer and clearer that what I wanted to do, because I was 65 and I had decades and decades of experience in a whole variety of careers, as well as life experience with things like, divorce and single motherhood and starting a new business and a new job and moving and all those things. I'd had a wealth of experience. And I've done decades and decades of personal growth and spiritual growth. So I thought, I want to be of use to people. I want to I want to support people. It's so important to me. Why would I go through all these things in life and just have that wisdom and experience stay inside? That sort of felt selfish, and also it wasn't satisfying. So part of the purpose of this channel is to share these things with you and empower you, inspire you, and re evoke, I guess there's a word, that creativity and that curiosity within you. And this is a journey. We're on a journey of life, and I just welcome you all to come along for the journey. And I welcome you all to share your stories, to share where you're at, to share your challenges. That will help me too to create content for this channel, because I really do have, I don't even know how many books and courses I've taken. It's just beyond count. And I have a lot of lived experience, and I really want to be able to share that to help people along the way. We're all here to help each other. We're much better as a community, much stronger than we are alone. Humans need other humans. And so I welcome you to this channel again. And I thank you for listening to this video. And I really welcome your feedback. It means so much to me to hear from you. Have a great day, and I'll see you again soon.